This is Volcanoids. Volcanoids is a first-person survival-y, crafty, explory thingy, and if you want a just a comparison to a similar game, think something like Subnautica a little bit. It's that sort of similar kind of game loop, but mixed with the theming of something like Sir You're Being Hunted, with all the steampunk robots and the steampunk universe in general. It's currently in early access. It is sort of in the middle of its campaign right now. It still feels pretty early. I'll be talking a little bit later about some things that I'd like to see changed or added in terms of, the whole early access thing. But in terms of what it already has, it's a pretty solid, just kind of survival-y thing. Now, I do say survival-y because it's not exactly like the standard survival formula, which I actually prefer it this way. Honestly, things like, hunger and thirst are not in the game. I don't even think they are planned to be in the game. That's not really what it's about. Instead, it is focusing on this sort of volcanic survival aspect, hence the name. You are on a volcanic island, and every 25 minutes on the normal difficulty mode, there are different difficulties that will change this, as well as I think you can customize the difficulty as well, which is pretty neat. And every 25 minutes, the volcano will erupt, and you'll have to go underground in order to survive at all, although there are blast shelters around the island as well. If you're in like a super emergency situation, you can't get to anywhere else. They will work for the time being. But yeah, ideally you want to get underground in your base, and that is really the main draw of the game, the base. You have what's called a drillship, which is effectively just like a big subterranean mining drill kind of thing with like the huge drill on the front and the various treads along the sides and things that allow it to go underground. And you don't actually start with one because, interestingly enough, for like a survival-y game like this, you actually have to find one in the wild and claim it for yourself. You can actually just steal them. Usually in games like this, you sort of build your own base from scratch, but in this case, you actually have to start with something at first, and then you gotta actually find one that already exists and take it for yourself. You can actually do this whenever you want. In fact, you can skip whole levels of technology if you want, and you're just kind of lucky enough to find like a really advanced drill ship and take it for yourself. You can do that if you want to, although the main draw is really just taking a simple one and then upgrading it slowly yourself and customizing it and everything and making it into your big mobile base. And this is where a lot of the Subnautica comparisons come in, because Subnautica is based around a very similar idea. Instead of being about building huge bases, although you can in Subnautica, it's more about like the sort of self-contained safe area that you can return to, research new technologies, get new gadgets and things, strike out from there, and just sort of try and explore the world and find resources and the like, and eventually come back to your safe zone and sort of put everything away and reset for the new adventure next time. That's the sort of gameplay loop that Subnautica involves. It's what made it really satisfying to me, because you always had this sort of upgradable safe zone that you could return to and be all chill and relax, and then you sort of struck out from there to try and find better resources in more dangerous places, and then would eventually return back to that base, upgrade it a little bit, and just sort of feel good about yourself. It gives you a nice visual way to track your progress when the actual safe base around you is continuously getting better. And Volcanoids has that going for it. You have this drill ship that will start out pretty basic. It'll just be like a little drill nugget, just like a little single unit ship. And you can put modules all along the walls, things like turrets for defending it, because it will be attacked when you're on the surface by robots, which is the Sorry You're Being Hunted comparison going on there. As well as things like power plants, production facilities, storage units, all sorts of stuff. And eventually you will be able to upgrade the actual mechanical aspects of the entire thing itself, like a better drill, so you can drill through other materials and get to different parts of the island with higher technology levels, better treads, better armor plating so it can defend itself a little bit easier. Even things like additional segments and engines that allow you to haul more segments at a time so that you can expand the base and make it larger and larger. And all in all, this makes for a really interesting system, because your base is constantly evolving, constantly growing, and it goes with you wherever you go, because your base is also what you use to get around. You will walk in the short term around different parts of the island, but in order to get to more advanced places in the island and other areas underground and the like, you will need to go into your drill ship and use it to drill around and actually get to various parts of the volcanic island, as well as its different sort of cave sublevels below the surface. That's a pretty cool idea. Honestly, having this sort of mobile base be like your constant companion, and you can even control it remotely by sort of telling it to dig underground by remote and telling it to appear back on the surface at the closest position you can near where you are. And this makes for a kind of neat idea where, instead of your normal survival-y experience of having like vehicles and a base being kind of like separate systems, like the base that you eventually return back to and then vehicles that allow you to go farther, they're actually, one and the same. So your actual base is your vehicle, and you have to keep it upgraded and keep it running and everything with fuel. It uses coal. and all this to actually keep it going. And it's actually kind of a neat system because it makes it to where when you upgrade your base, you're also upgrading your method of transportation, your method of storage, your method of production. It's all in one sort of package. So it's a neat system to be able to customize and upgrade this drill ship as your main base. You also have some equipment yourself. You will start with some basic stuff, a revolver and some revolver bullets, some first aid kits, and a pickaxe for mining materials on the surface. And you can eventually craft yourself some better weaponry like a shotgun, a mortar, some grenades, some other things like that. And also each weapon tends to have multiple ammo types, which I'm always a fan of, so that allows you to not really obsolete weapons because you can continually get better stuff for those same weapons, so you can keep them in service. And of course, as you go, you'll be eventually facing off against more advanced robots. There will be higher tech level drill ships in the world that can produce higher tech level robots and new resources and the like. So as you upgrade your own drill ship, it will allow you to access new areas of the island that have higher resource levels, higher technology levels, which will make the game harder, but will also allow you to get better and better stuff as you go to give you that nice little sense of progression that the world around you is changing because you're continually going to higher tech level places. You can do things like, as I mentioned, placing production modules, research modules, foundries, refineries, like scrapping systems, all sorts of things in the walls and ceiling of your drill ship. So this is where comparisons to stuff like Factorio and Satisfactory come in with this sort of automated system of trying to keep your factory running, although in this case, rather than being a spread out factory around the world, it's like a self-contained multi-unit factory in the actual ship that you control. And you can actually customize a lot of aspects of it. It's probably the most advanced part of the game right now is all of the various things that you can do with all of your modules. You can even have like customized screens that show you what different products are being produced where and how many you have of different things in storage. You can have like an interlinked storage system that goes throughout your ship to supply all the different things making stuff to make sure that they can actually create their blueprints. You can set certain blueprints to produce themselves indefinitely if you want like just as much iron as possible or something, and you just want to keep loading up iron ore and keep having it like infinitely produce it in your refineries. You can do that. You can have it only produce above a certain threshold. So for instance, if you have a bunch of turrets on the outside of your drill ship to defend it, they will need ammunition. So you can set it to where, say, maybe 5 units of ammunition is in storage, and it dips below that, then it'll automatically pull the stuff from storage to produce another unit of ammunition to make sure that it doesn't run out when you're gone. You can just do stuff like that. And the research system is similar. You can get different research items, things to research, like pieces of robots of different tech levels and pieces of destroyed technology around the place that you can find in like destroyed villages and stuff. And you can take these back to your ship and plug them into the research machine and have them create different forms of research that you can then use to make upgrades and blueprints for further upgrades to, like, give you a tier 2 refinery, for instance, which takes up twice as much room as the normal one and takes a lot more power, but can produce all sorts of new fancy things for you. And it's just this whole system that if you've played something like Subnautica or indeed Factorio, you're probably used to that like tier-based tech level research kind of production system where like you have at first copper and then you'll get some iron and you'll just sort of keep going through these levels and getting more and more advanced stuff that allow you to produce more advanced production facilities that allow you to research even more advanced stuff, and then it just sort of keeps going from there, and you spiral into eventually having this big, like, automated, multi-segmented drill ship that's like a huge fortress that can produce all sorts of stuff for you. It's actually a really cool system, and I enjoy games like that, and I think in comparison to something like Satisfactory or Factorio, what? It's actually a bit more accessible than games like that, because although it is ultimately simpler since everything is self-contained, the fact that it is self-contained makes managing your factory subsystems and everything a lot more easy to do because it's all in one place and you don't have to worry about like production lines and conveyor belts and the like. So it is a similar idea, but since it's such a self-contained system inside your own drill ship, it makes it still satisfying to get right, but easier to get right. I would say it's a bit of a different feel to something like the more sprawling systems in Factorio, for instance. And then, of course, you do have the whole eruption thing where eventually every 25 minutes this volcano will erupt and you'll have to sort of pack up everything. It automatically retracts all active modules and it even saves the configuration that they were in so that when you go back to the surface they will redeploy in that exact same configuration, which is a really nice quality of life feature that makes it not so finicky to have things continue to produce themselves and all that. And you will go under the surface and survive the blast. And I gotta say, the first time I saw the volcanic eruption, it was actually pretty impressive because not a lot of games actually do volcanoes, and even even fewer of them actually do volcanoes in a way that you're actually in the path of the eruption. And what actually happens is you get to see the huge like ash cloud get blown out from the volcano, and then the big like pyroclastic flow wave rolls down the mountain and eventually over where you are, and just like levels the whole area, just takes all the leaves off the trees and strips everything away. Our resource nodes will respawn when a volcano erupts, and also the ground will be like covered in ash for a while, and it'll rain ash afterwards. A lot of the more like lava prone areas will have a lot more like surges of lava in them. And if you're actually underground but not safe underground, like underground in one of the caverns instead, then the caverns will also flood with like a lava burst that you have to avoid. So it's a pretty impressive effect, honestly, and the fact that it happens so smoothly every 25 minutes is actually pretty cool, and it gives you that sort of reset, you know, that world reset where you're like, okay, I have to stop gathering resources and stop destroying this enemy drill ship for salvage and go back home and be safe, and then come back up a little bit later after that and just sort of start over again. It's a nice little feature because it gives you like a time limit without being like an actual overarching time limit that limits the entire game. It's more like you have 25 minutes to get done what you need to have done on the surface, and then you got to go back down for a minute and sort of reset the whole thing, come back up for another 25 minutes. It makes your time feel pretty valuable because all of your exploration and salvaging enemy drill ships and gathering resources and all of that, it all has to happen within these safe 25-minute spans before you have to sort of retreat back to your base, go back down, maybe do some upgrading while you're underground waiting out the eruption and stuff like that, and then go back up and start over. It's pretty cool. And it does help to actually add to that cozy effect that I tend to find a lot of games like Subnautica and the like have with their bases. You know, you have like your cozy home base where you can just be home and chill and know that everything around you is helping to defend you, and you've built all this up yourself, and it's really satisfying. It helps to make that even more so when you have to actually like hunker down in it to be safe from a giant volcanic eruption and actually dig through the ground underground with your cool base and emerge somewhere else for new resources. It's pretty neat. Now, as far as what's been going on with the early access, the newest, at the time of recording this, the most recent update that just happened a couple of days ago was the big co-op update. It also added some other new features and some more variety in general to the just normal gameplay, but the main feature was that it added co-op, so if you want to, you can actually go online and play with your friends, which is pretty cool, and the game is actually on discount right now until, at the time of recording at least, until the 27th of May, for 25% off to sort of celebrate the, you know, get your friends to buy it kind of thing. So it's only $15 right now, which is actually not bad, honestly. And the amount of content on offer currently, I would say personally, is probably worth that amount, but there isn't a huge amount. It's $15 is pretty fair, I think, but you will run out of stuff to do before too long. It's nowhere near as like hugely featured as like Factorio is, although that's not necessarily the most fair comparison because it's a bit of a different kind of game, and Factorio is gigantic, but still, it doesn't have quite as much like technology to go through and stuff as something like that. But what is here is pretty fun so far. As far as things that I would like to see added or changed, one, it needs more optimization for sure. It runs okay now. They had just recently done a pretty significant optimization pass on what's currently in the game, but it still has some problems with like hitching at certain points and some other things that just don't perform very well, like the shadows are very taxing on the system more so than they actually should be. So it definitely needs some more optimization. It does this weird thing occasionally where it'll start to like freeze every like 5 or 6 seconds or so. For a couple minutes at a time, it'll just like hitch here and there, and oddly enough, it's not around the eruptions, which you would figure that would be like the most taxing part of the game, but not really. They actually go off pretty smooth, it seems like. It's actually after the eruptions that things get a little bit dicey sometimes in the performance. I would also like to see a bit of an improvement to the AI. I think the AI is a little too basic right now. I'm sure it's something that they'll work on. It's most definitely something that they're aware of because I'm far from the only person to have said that, so they'll probably be working on this at some point. But the robots never seem to miss, like, ever. They have, like, perfect robotic accuracy, which you might think, well, they're a robot, so of course they do. But for one, they're steampunk robots, and steampunk is always supposed to be kind of janky and not actually perfect. But two, it's just kind of annoying to have them have, like, laser perfect accuracy at all times, to where you have to... It just kind of makes the combat feel a bit MMO-like, you know? Like, once they're in your line of sight, they will hit you no matter what until either they die or you get out of their line of sight. There's, like, no way to really avoid them. So that can become a problem when you're trying to raid higher tier drill ships and you just climb up a ladder and you discover that there's like 7,000 robots just waiting up there and they all like shotgun you with perfect accuracy at once and you just explode. It really sucks. So the overall AI routines, their behavior and everything, I think needs to be enhanced, and I'm sure that they're aware of that. I would also like to see a bit of a gear system. Right now, the only gear, the only stuff that you make for yourself, your actual character, are weapons. And I feel like one of the big, satisfying, overarching goals to work towards in a game like this is stuff for your character, and not just stuff for your base or your vehicle, which in this case is the same, but stuff for your actual character. So rather than just have weapons, I would like to see some more stuff like maybe a crazy steampunk jetpack that lets you like boost jump, or some nice boots that let you sprint much faster across the world, or some armor that makes you take less damage from the robots, or some weird steampunk goggles that allow you to see weak points on the robots that you can hit for super high damage and stuff like that. You know, just kind of go crazy with like the whole steampunk theme, because the theming is there and all the production and crafting is there, but currently there isn't really like a gear system per se for your character aside from the weapons. And also, of course, just more variety in general, just simply more stuff, more places to go, more enemies to fight, more things to research. And I think that's, so far, what's in the game currently is pretty worthwhile and actually quite a bit of fun, even if the performance can be a bit iffy at times. And I'm excited to see where they'll go from here, because these guys have been working on this for a while now. It's like a year in early access or so, and it shows. It's improved a lot since it actually came out on early access. It has a lot more stuff in it, and these devs are clearly very serious about what they're doing, because they're constantly taking community feedback into account and constantly making changes and adding new stuff. So I would like to see where it goes from here. I think it's a really solid sort of base building, survival-y thing, and I always personally enjoy games like that because they have that cozy satisfaction feeling, and this definitely has it with the really neat drillship mechanics and stuff. So that is Volcanoids. If you want to check it out, the link to the Steam page will be in the description below this video. Feel free to do so or wishlist it if you just want to keep an eye on it and wait for it to update some more. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.